They called Lily Mathers a rookie. Too soft, too slow. James Richards laughed her off the mission roster, confident she'd freeze when things got real. But what he didn't know was that Lily once led a Black Ops team through enemy fire and walked them all home. Now, as chaos erupts and lives hang in the balance, guess who's giving orders? Stick around because the rookie they ignored is about to rewrite what heroism looks like, with a Medal of Honor to prove it. Don't forget to drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time you found this video. Also hit that subscribe button. The fluorescent lights of the command center cast harsh shadows across Colonel James Richards' face as he studied the storm radar with growing intensity. His weathered fingers traced the violent red swirls consuming the screen each revolution of the radar, matching the thundering of his heart. The Black Hawk carrying General Coleman was a mere blip against nature's fury, a decision that shouldn't have been made a violation of the protocols Colonel James Richards had spent 27 years enforcing. The crash alert's mechanical wail pierced the control room's tense atmosphere, its harsh tone all too familiar to Colonel James Richards. His grip tightened on the commander's coin in his pocket, a tangible reminder of 2 decades of unwavering discipline. The weight of his ribboned uniform, each medal earned through strict adherence to procedure, seemed to double as Lieutenant Park's voice cut through the siren. "Sir, Black Hawk down in Sector 7. 6 soldiers and General Coleman aboard." Lieutenant Park's voice wavered slightly. "Visibility near 0, sir. Storm's intensifying." Colonel James Richards stood straighter, his jaw clenched. The protocol was clear. Wait for the storm to clear, assemble a proper rescue team, maintain order. These rules had saved countless lives over the years. He pulled out his commander's coin, its polished surface reflecting the emergency lights as he ran his thumb over its embossed surface. "We need to wait for..." he began. But Captain Lily Mathers burst into the command center, her boots leaving wet marks on the pristine floor. "Sir, I can have a rescue team airborne in 5 minutes." She interrupted, her eyes blazing with an insubordination that made Colonel James Richards' blood boil. The window between storm cells. "Captain Mathers!" Colonel James Richards' voice cracked like thunder across the command center. "You will maintain proper chain of command. Protocol dictates we wait for optimal conditions. I will not risk more lives with a reckless rescue attempt." He watched her face flush with defiance, a subtle hint of doubt creeping into his mind as she held his gaze. Something in her eyes reminded him of himself decades ago, before he'd learned the costly price of deviation from protocol. "Those are our people out there, sir." She pressed each word a challenge to his authority. "General Coleman is bound by the same protocols as everyone else." Colonel James Richards cut her off, gripping his commander's coin until its edges bit into his palm. "Stand down, Captain. That's an order." The command center fell silent except for the persistent wail of the crash alert and the steady beep of the radar. Colonel James Richards turned back to the storm display, his reflection overlaying the swirling chaos on the screen. 27 years of command decisions weighed on his shoulders, each one made by the book. Each one preserving the order that kept their military machine running. But something felt different this time. The defiance in Captain Mather's eyes haunted him like a mirror reflecting a truth he'd buried under years of rigid adherence to protocol. Would his power survive this challenge to his authority? Would the rules that had defined his career stand against the storm of change brewing in his command center? Type protocol in the comments if you've ever faced a choice between following rules and following your heart. Standing alone before the radar screen, Colonel James Richards remembered his first command, the day his superior officer had pressed this very coin into his palm. "Rules exist to prevent chaos," the old colonel had said. "Never let emotion cloud your judgment." But as the crash alert continued its relentless wail, Colonel James Richards wondered if he'd learned the wrong lesson all those years ago. Now, watching Captain Mathers retreat with barely contained fury, Colonel James Richards felt the first tremors of doubt in his fortress of protocol. The storm raged on both outside and within as the next 24 hours threatened to unravel everything he'd built his career upon. Colonel James Richards' fingers traced the worn edges of his command coin, each groove a reminder of the order he'd dedicated his life to maintaining. The security feeds flickered before him, casting an accusatory blue glow across his office as he watched Captain Lily Mathers pore over geological surveys with Jenkins and Ramirez. 20 years of military service had taught him to trust his gut, and right now it was churning with suspicion. Play it again. Colonel James Richards commanded, his voice steady despite the growing knot in his stomach. The footage rewound, showing Mathers pointing to specific tunnel formations, her gestures precise, practiced. Too practiced. The command coin caught the light as he turned it over a habit that had always steadied his nerves. But not today. Colonel James Richards pulled up Mathers' service record, searching for anything that might explain her unusual familiarity with the area. Her file was exemplary, perhaps too exemplary. Computer cross-reference Captain Mathers' background with local mining operations. He ordered, remembering how she'd challenged his decision in front of the entire command staff. The memory made his jaw clench. The results made his blood run cold. Captain Mathers' father had been chief engineer for the very mining operation that had carved out these tunnels. The same tunnels she now insisted held the key to reaching the crashed Black Hawk. Colonel James Richards' fingers tightened around his command coin until his knuckles went white. Thunder rolled outside closer now, as if nature itself were mocking his rigid adherence to protocol. The emergency klaxons continued their steady rhythm, each blare a reminder of lives hanging in the balance. But protocol existed for a reason. Without it, there would be chaos, casualties, collapse of the very structure that kept them all alive. "Sir," Lieutenant Parker appeared in the doorway. "Captain Mathers is requesting another emergency briefing." Colonel James Richards stood, his command coin heavy in his palm. "Tell her request denied. Protocol stands." The words tasted like ash in his mouth, but he forced them out anyway. 20 years of service had taught him that bending rules led to breaking them, and broken rules led to broken soldiers. But as he watched Mathers' face fall on the security feed, something else gnawed at him. A memory from his early days when another commander's strict adherence to protocol had cost 3 good men their lives. Colonel James Richards had sworn then to never let protocol blind him to reality. Yet here he was, possibly making the same mistake. The command coin slipped from his fingers, clattering onto his desk with an accusing ring. Colonel James Richards stared at it, seeing not the symbol of authority it represented, but a mirror reflecting his own rigid thinking. The emergency klaxon seemed to grow louder, more insistent, as if trying to shake him from his certainty. Have you ever questioned if doing things by the book might be the wrong choice? Share your thoughts below if you've faced this dilemma. His computer chimed, displaying new data about the mining tunnel's structural integrity. The reports Mathers had referenced were accurate, every single one. Colonel James Richards felt the foundation of his certainty crack, just as thunder cracked overhead. He picked up the command coin again, but instead of comfort, it felt like a weight pulling him down. 20 years of service had taught him to trust protocol, but it had also taught him to recognize when someone knew what they were talking about. And Mathers clearly did. The emergency klaxons continued their relentless rhythm as Colonel James Richards faced the growing realization that his adherence to protocol might not just be cautious, it might be catastrophically wrong. His career had been built on following rules, enforcing order, maintaining structure. But what if that same structure was now threatening to collapse around him? The security feed showed Mathers back at her station, her posture tense but determined. She hadn't given up despite his dismissal, despite protocol, despite him. Colonel James Richards felt something he hadn't experienced in years' doubt. His command coin caught the light again, and for a moment he saw his reflection distorted in its surface. Was he protecting his people? Or was he hiding behind regulations? The thunder rolled once more, and with it came a chilling thought. What if his legacy would be defined, not by the protocols he maintained, but by the lives those protocols might cost? The emergency klaxons blared on marking time as precious minutes slipped away. Each one waited with the growing certainty that something had to give. And Colonel James Richards, for the first time in 20 years, wasn't sure if it should be the rules or him. Colonel James Richards stares at the security monitors, his jaw clenched, as the unauthorized vehicles disappear into the storm's fury. The command coin, his constant companion through 25 years of service, feels unusually heavy in his trembling hand. Every flash of lightning illuminates his reflection in the command center windows. A man watching his carefully constructed world unravel. Sir Captain Mather's team has breached the perimeter through Section Delta. Lieutenant Park's voice wavers. They've accessed emergency equipment from the old mining shaft storage. Colonel James Richards' throat tightens as he watches the footage replay. Each unauthorized access code, each broken seal, each violation of protocol he'd spent years perfecting, all documented in crisp digital clarity. His legacy of order crumbling with every passing second. The base communication system crackles. Command, this is Rescue Team Alpha. Static cuts through before the transmission dies. Colonel James Richards grips his desk knuckles white. The storm outside mirrors the chaos in his mind, rain lashing against reinforced glass like nature itself mocks his powerlessness. A junior officer bursts in. Colonel James Richards, Sir, CNN is live streaming the rescue vehicle's departure. Our storm rescue is trending nationwide. Civilian videos are going viral. The command coin slips from his fingers, clattering on the desk. Colonel James Richards watches it spin, a perfect circle of authority now wobbling uncertainly. 25 years of unwavering protocol, of being the unmovable object, the voice of order. And now millions would witness its potential undoing. His phone buzzes incessantly. Base Command Pentagon liaison media requests. Colonel James Richards sees his name in every notification, each one a potential nail in his career's coffin. The rain hammers harder, drowning out everything except the thundering of his heart. Sir, Park's voice cuts through his spiral. Captain Mather's team has reached the crash site. They're requesting emergency channel authorization. Colonel James Richards reaches for his command coin, the metal cold against his palm. His reflection in its surface shows something he hasn't seen in decades. Fear. If Mathers succeeds, every regulation he's enforced becomes questionable. If she fails, those lives are on his hands for not stopping her sooner. The social media feed on his monitor updates continuously. Storm rescue climbs trending lists, accompanied by grainy videos of rescue vehicles plowing through the tempest. Each share, each retweet, each comment demanding action chips away at his authority. Colonel James Richards. Park's voice holds an edge of urgency. Base personnel are gathering in the main hall. They're watching the live feed, sir. The command coin feels like ice in his grip. Colonel James Richards remembers the weight of it when it was first pressed into his palm, the responsibility it represented. Now it seems to burn with accusation. Thunder crashes outside as his computer screen fills with incoming messages. Base Command wants answers. The Pentagon demands updates. And somewhere in the storm, Captain Mathers leads a team that could either save lives or die trying, all while demolishing every protocol he's built his career upon. Colonel James Richards stands at the command center windows, watching lightning split the sky. The storm rages on, indifferent to regulations, to protocol, to the career of one colonel facing the greatest challenge to his authority. Have you ever watched your world collapse in real time? His whispered words fog the glass. Drop one if you've seen your certainties crumble. The command coin catches the light of another lightning flash. Colonel James Richards sees his reflection fractured in its surface. A man realizing that sometimes the greatest threat to order isn't chaos, but compassion. Colonel James Richards stood rigidly in the Joint Chiefs briefing room, my commander's coin burning like molten lead in my pocket. The same coin I'd polished obsessively while denying Captain Mather's desperate rescue requests just 24 hours ago. Now, watching her confident stride to the podium, I barely recognized the recruit I'd once dismissed. My throat constricted as she detailed the successful rescue operation, the one I'd forbidden. Each life saved was another crack in my fortress of regulations. The projector hummed, displaying thermal images of survivors who, according to my precious protocols, should have perished. 8 beating hearts that protocol would have silenced. The rigid application of Protocol 255A nearly cost 8 service members their lives. Captain Mathers stated, her voice steady. The words sliced through me like Arctic wind. My fingers trembled against my coin as Project Protocol Revolution flashed across my phone screen, already trending across military bases worldwide. General Morrison's voice cut through my spiral. Colonel Richards, your report on protocol reform. Standing before my peers, I withdrew the commander's coin, its surface dulled by countless anxious touches over the past day. In 22 years of service, I've never deviated from protocol. My voice cracked. Yesterday, I learned that unwavering adherence to rules without considering context isn't leadership, it's cowardice. The admission tasted bitter, but the weight lifting from my shoulders was undeniable. Behind me, the morning sun streamed through windows, catching the coin's edge. I recommend immediate implementation of the Mathers Doctrine, allowing field commanders discretionary power during rescue operations. The room fell silent as I placed my commander's coin on the podium. This coin represents the old way, the inflexible way. I submit it as the first artifact for the Military Response Evolution Museum, a reminder that sometimes our greatest service comes from knowing when to break rank. Have you ever had to admit you were catastrophically wrong? Drop a 2 in the comments. Captain Mathers caught my eye as I stepped down, a subtle nod, acknowledging my transformation. On the screens above, social media exploded with reactions to the new protocols. Protocol Revolution had become Fudchinik Richards reforms. But I felt no pride, only profound relief. The base-wide PA system crackled. Attention, all personnel, emergency response reform program now in effect. New protocols available for immediate review. I touched my bare pocket where the coin had rested for so many years. Its absence felt right. As I walked toward my new office in the Reform Program building, my phone buzzed with a final notification. My commander's coin was now centerpiece of the museum's Evolution of Leadership exhibit. The morning sun illuminated the base as young officers hurried past tablets displaying the new protocols. Their eager discussions about flexible response options echoed across the quad. I paused, watching them embrace the change I'd fought so hard against. Sometimes the greatest victory comes in surrender. Sometimes the highest form of leadership is admitting you were wrong. And sometimes, as I finally learned, the truest strength lies not in unwavering rigidity, but in the courage to bend before you break. Share this story if you believe true leadership means admitting when you're wrong. Richards reforms. Colonel James Richards' fingers traced the worn edges of his command coin, now lying cold and accusatory on his desk. The Emergency Operations Center's screens bathed his face in their harsh glow as he watched Captain Mathers' team weave through the tunnel network with devastating efficiency. Each successful checkpoint they cleared felt like another nail in his carefully constructed coffin of regulations and protocol. Survivor Group Alpha secured, crackled the radio Mathers' voice, steady and professional. Moving to extraction point. The words hit Richards like physical blows. His throat constricted as he watched the impossible unfold. The very scenario he had deemed too risky being executed with precision that bordered on artistry. The command center erupted in barely contained cheers, but Richards heard them as if through water, distant and distorted. "Colonel Richards, sir." His aide's voice trembled with barely contained excitement. "The rescue team has secured all survivors. No casualties." Richards reached for his command coin again, the metal now slick with his sweat. The symbol of his authority felt like a mockery. 15 years of rigid adherence to protocol, of building his reputation on unwavering discipline crumbling in the space of 6 hours. The radio crackled again. "Colonel Richards' priority transmission incoming from Joint Chiefs." His stomach lurched. The approaching thunder of helicopter rotors cut through the diminishing storm. Too precise, too deliberate to be a regular transport. He knew with crushing certainty that this wasn't a routine check-in. "Sir." His aide hesitated. "General Morrison is on board. They're requesting immediate landing clearance." The security feed showed the rescue team emerging from the tunnel, survivors in tow. The base personnel were gathering, their faces alight with triumph and relief. Captain Mather's team had done the impossible. They had rewritten the rules of engagement while he had clung to his precious protocols. Richard's inner monologue burned with revelation. "I've spent my career building walls of regulations thinking they made me strong. But strength isn't in the rules. It's in knowing when to break them to save lives. I've been the villain in my own story, and everyone knew it but me." The command coin slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the metal desk, with a sound like funeral bells. "Grant them clearance!" He managed, his voice barely steady. The operations center doors burst open. General Morrison strode in, flanked by 2 officers Richards recognized from the Pentagon's Emergency Response Reform Committee. Their expressions told him everything he needed to know. "Colonel James Richards." Morrison's voice carried the weight of judgment. "I believe we need to discuss the future of emergency response protocols." Richard stood, his legs leaden. Through the window, he could see Captain Mathers directing the medical teams, her unauthorized mission, now a testament to true leadership. The base personnel who had once snapped to attention at his approach now barely spared him a glance, their focus on the real hero of the hour. The security feeds continued their relentless broadcast. Mathers. Miracle was trending nationwide with footage of the rescue operation going viral. His phone buzzed with notifications. Press inquiries, military watchdog groups, congressional committees, all demanding answers. "I understand, General," Richard said, finally removing his command insignia with trembling fingers. "I believe I have a lot to answer for." Type "protocols fall" if you've ever witnessed pride crumble in the face of true courage. The helicopter rotors faded to silence, but their echo seemed to linger, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another. Colonel James Richards, the man who had built his career on never bending the rules, stood ready to face the consequences of being on the wrong side of history.